What's up, my dudes? Austin Forkner injury update. So I'm sure there's a lot of you guys out there that are really concerned, including me. Kind of like, just give it to me straight, doc. How bad is it, doc? Right? So, good news is, all things considering, I think it could have been a lot worse for how bad that crash really was. Yes, he did get some injuries here, but thank Pastrana, it wasn't anything worse, okay? He did indeed fracture his L3 and L4 spinal, okay? And he also broke his scapula. But the good news is there's no surgery needed. It's all just going to heal on its own. And he's already left the hospital. So I know his dad posted on social media that he thinks that this is just another small bump in the road. He thinks that Forkner's going to come back. Obviously, probably not this season because he does have some fractures. But all in all, I think Forkner really did come out of this on the better side than what it could have been, okay? Also, a little side note, apparently Forkner lost a contact in the middle of that main event. That could have certainly played a part in him misjudging that jump a little bit and causing this crash. I just wanted to say in this video, I certainly don't think the pressure got to him. I don't know what the hell Haiden Deegan was talking about in his interview, but that was certainly not the best time to be saying something like that when Forkner's laying over there on the concrete, might not ever walk again. I don't think that's necessarily the best time to be acting like you pressured him into a mistake. First of all, I don't even think that's true. I really don't. But also just terrible timing to say something like that. But Deegan, I hate to break it to you, man, but you really weren't pressuring Forkner in that main event. You had one little moment where you thought about catching him, and then you made your own mistake in the sand, and you fell back to the point where it looked like Forkner was just going to run away with it and win the race pretty easily. Okay, that's what it really looked like to me. And it looked like Forkner was riding totally in control, just like he did in the first main event of the year where he won. It didn't look like he was riding out of control. And if you go back and watch the race, McAdoo almost did the exact same thing that Forkner did on the exact same jump like 2 laps before. Even Ricky Carmichael talked about it in the broadcast. He was like, oh my God, McAdoo. He basically slammed his chin on the handlebars on that jump, had that same sort of gnarly transition G out where it almost just blew him off of the bike, but he barely held on to it. I honestly just think this sort of crash that happened to Forkner could have happened to anybody on that jump. That's what I believe. I don't really think it was like Forkner was getting pressured or he rode above his head or whatever. I know, of course, a lot of people are going to bring up the history of all of the crashes that Forkner has had. I mean, you could certainly say he has a lot of bad luck and all of that, but this particular crash, I just think it was just one of those things, like that sort of a transition, that sort of a jump that's made like that. It's kind of rare that you have those like that on a Supercross track that are that brutal and that peaked out like that, where it causes the bike to G out to that extent when you hit it. You know what I'm saying? So it was just kind of one of those jumps. I felt like it could have happened to anybody. Could have happened to Deegan. It almost happened to McAdoo. And it just so happened to happen to Forkner. That's the way I look at it, okay? It's like, Forkner just barely came up short over the backside of that tabletop, and then before you could say Bob's your uncle, He's flying through the air. I know that feeling in real life moto. I've done that before where it launches you totally off the bike and you're like, where the hell am I at? Flying through the air. Am I going to die when I hit the ground? Like, probably the most scary feeling you can have, okay? But yeah, Forkner lands the most brutal way that you possibly could on that concrete. I know some people brought up the not being too happy with the way the medical people treated the incident. Basically had Forkner walking like shortly after the crash. They did have a neck brace on him, but obviously he had a L3 and L4 fracture here, so probably not the smartest thing to have him up and walking like that. Probably would have been better protocol to put him on the stretcher or something like that with that brutal of an impact. So yeah, I'm leaning more towards I agree with you guys that are a bit upset at the medical staff there. I think they could have handled that a little bit better, but I just really I don't even blame Forkner. I don't even think he did anything that crazy wrong. I just think that particular kind of steep transition like that was gonna reach up and grab somebody. It just was. But it just so happened to get Forkner. That's kind of what I think about it. So either way, man, this is still really good news, though, that Forkner wasn't hurt any worse. We can all sort of breathe a sigh of relief at this point. You know, I feel like the whole entire moto industry really felt some kind of way after this crash right here. It's just that kind of... You don't even believe that it happened when it happened. Kind of felt like a bad dream. Kind of felt like did I even see what I just saw? Makes you not even want to ride in real life. You know, that kind of scary level shit. Yeah. I just think it's one of those things, man. Supercross is gnarly. Sometimes it don't matter how safe you're riding. Sometimes it's just gonna get you. And there ain't nothing you can do about it, you know, especially at the level them boys are pushing at and the jump rhythms they're hitting. You know, and I don't necessarily think AMA should have done anything different as far as the jumps on the track. I just think it is what it is kind of deal, you know? They're talking about trying to not have any more than 9 whoops on a track for safety, but then you're going to have some jump rhythm that's going to reach up and bite somebody. It's just a part of Supercross, man. It's just a part of it, man. It just so happened the way that Forkner came off the bike, and it wasn't like he just skid on the concrete, you know, it slammed him down on that concrete. I know some people have kind of brought up, like basically saying it could have been worse if he landed on the dirt, which is kind of interesting and weird opinion out there. Yeah, it could have been worse, like if he landed on an actual jump face and it just stopped him. You know, at least you can say with the concrete, it was kind of smoothed out where his momentum was able to carry through a little bit, but it wasn't like no street bike racing crash where they just go sliding down the concrete and nothing really happens to them. This was more like a brutal fly out of the sky, 2 stories in the air, straight down to concrete. About as bad as it can possibly be, honestly. So, I don't know if it would have been worse, him landing on the dirt. I think that's about as bad as it could have been, man. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that they just have concrete, 5 foot off the side of the track like that. I think he would have been better off landing on the track because there was that sort of top layer of softer dirt on it. If he didn't land on the face of a jump, obviously. If he could have landed on the backside of something or in a flat area. That concrete was brutal, bro. I mean, brutal. 420 times we've been saying brutal. So, either way, guys, definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys thought about it. But, yeah, good news, really good news. We should be seeing Forkner coming back. This doesn't seem like it's going to be a career-ending sort of crash here. So, all things are good. Praise Pastrana, you know what I'm saying?